Sometimes there are things that soldiers do in the United States Army that gets them in trouble. Now, I'm not talking about the obvious things like if you murdered somebody, if you were doing drugs, or if you stole some stuff. I'm talking about the common things. The things that maybe if you're a soldier or you're a potential future soldier kind of a thing, you're probably gonna make these mistakes. They're pretty common and you can avoid them, and maybe I'll be able to give you some tips, maybe make you aware of these common mistakes that soldiers sometimes get in trouble for, so that way you have a heads up about that. What's up, my friends? US Army veteran Christopher Chaos, and I want to help you out and make sure that you're aware of these common things. These are common things that soldiers do that get them in trouble. Now, the severity of like how bad they get in trouble may fluctuate based on the leadership and how they want to handle those things. I mean, it could be as simple as a stern talking to or doing some push-ups, or maybe even a counseling statement, which is just documenting what they did and maybe some kind of punishment that they have to do to kind of correct their mistake. If you're interested in this type of content, then make sure you're hitting that subscribe button down below. I would hate for you to miss something very important, something that you could benefit from the knowledge, whether you want to join what you're currently in, or you're a veteran that just likes to keep up to date with what's going on in the United States Army. Hit that subscribe button along with that bell so you get alerts as soon as new videos go live, to include my live streams. But let's move into 5 things that I want to kind of hit on that are pretty common things that soldiers do that get them in trouble. First one, and maybe my veterans and people currently in the Army can already predict the first one that I'm listing. They're not really in a specific order, but the first one is being late. That can happen a lot of different ways, right? You overslept, you were running behind and getting ready, you didn't end up showing up to the right location, so then you had to kind of correct it and try to get to the right location on time. There's a lot of ways that can cause you to be late, and that is a pretty common thing that soldiers get in trouble for doing. You might have something like 6:30 formation, which is probably the really bad one usually. You know, that's the accountability formation. That's the one that really can get you in trouble if you're late for that one sometimes, or you miss it or whatever. And then there's other things like maybe there's a 9 o'clock formation. Maybe there's just a class that's supposed to be going on, whatever the case could be. That's why a lot of people like veterans and people in the Army will tell you there's no such thing as being on time in the United States Army. You're either early or you're late. So soldiers usually try to be 15 minutes early at a minimum, 30 minutes early. You'll hear the common expression probably in past videos or from other people, you know, being 15 minutes to being 15 minutes prior, all that kind of stuff, because you want to have time for a little bit of little cushion room kind of a thing, to where if you're running a little bit late, well, you were already planning on being there 30 minutes early anyways. Now you're only 15 minutes early, which is still pretty good. But if you're supposed to be somewhere, let's say at 9 o'clock, showing up at 8:55, showing up at 9 o'clock on the dot is not acceptable. Why is that? Well, a lot of times they want to make sure they have the right people. And if they don't have the right people, then they want to have some time to be able to call them and get a hold of them, find out what the hell's going on, and get them there to the right place on time. So being on time is really important, and that can definitely easily get you in trouble. That one is commonly maybe just some push-ups. If it was something repetitive, like you were late all the time, then yeah, it could start building up and becoming more serious. You know, you start building up the counseling statements and you're still not learning your lesson, you're always late, then sure, it could escalate even higher to an Article 15. Being late once, twice, you know, that might result in some push-ups and counseling statements, but it's not gonna be something like you're getting kicked out of the Army, you're gonna be reduced in pay, reduced in rank. That usually doesn't start happening until it becomes a real big problem. The next one, number 2, that I'll mention is just not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and that can happen in a lot of ways as well. Some of the common ways that happens of you get caught doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, you're supposed to be doing something, you're not doing that thing, right? You got sent, let's say, down to the motor pool to go and check out the vehicles, but you got sidetracked and you started visiting with your buddy, you started doing some other stuff, your NCOs go to check on you or check on that soldier to see what's going on, to see how things are going, and they find that you're not doing what they told you to go do, and that can result in being in trouble. That could be more of a severe thing too, like maybe you're told to go do this mission, to go do this task or whatever, and you completely blew it off and you're like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna go hide out in my barracks room, take a little nap, you know, go play some Xbox and PlayStation, whatever. Then yeah, that's a little bit more extreme, and that's, again, not doing what we're supposed to be doing, and sometimes soldiers do that kind of stuff. Those are usually a little bit, you know, not of the good kind of soldiers type of thing. Those are the ones that are definitely trying to get out of work, trying to get out of things. They thought they can get away with it, and sometimes they get caught, sometimes they get away with it. Definitely if it's that kind of situation, yeah, the punishment is gonna be a lot more. If it was something like, yeah, you were supposed to go clean up in the motor pool and you got a little bit sidetracked and you're visiting with your buddies and you're kind of goofing off a little bit and you really haven't kind of cleaned up, you know, like you were supposed to be doing, then sure, it might be just getting yelled at kind of a thing. If it's something you do often, then again, it starts escalating and starts getting a little bit worse. But that does sometimes happen. Soldiers sometimes just, sidetracked a little bit. They don't realize that their NCOs are gonna come check on them. And they figure, oh, I'll get this done, but I don't wanna do it right away. I wanna kind of goof off a little bit and then I'll start working on that. And then it just happens to be that NCOs catch you goofing off before you even got to the task and now you're in trouble. Number 3 is not having something that you're supposed to have. That could be part of your uniform, something you're supposed to have on you, something you're supposed to bring with you, whatever the case is, and this is a pretty common one. Usually the common things that people get in trouble for not having is like a pen, right? You might be somewhere where you're doing a class, you have a briefing, you have some kind of little, mission briefing type of thing that's going on from your squad leader, platoon sergeant, from somebody, and they usually want you to have out a pen and paper to write shit down. And if you don't have that pen and paper, well, that's, gonna cost you a little bit, right? You might have to do some push-ups, maybe the NCO squares you away and gives you a pen and some paper to write some stuff down with, and then you owe them a little bit later or whatever. But that's a pretty common one that someone's usually missing, is like either a pen, a paper, maybe even both. So it's good to always have maybe like 1 or 2 pens on you. I mean, they even have pockets like in your sleeves, inside of the uniform, or just simply in your pocket in general, right? That you can keep those pens, maybe that paper somewhere, so that you have it in those instances when they expect you to write stuff down and you have that prepared, or maybe it's a class or whatever. Definitely if it's a class. If it's a class, definitely make sure you have something to write with and a pen. But there's other examples too. I mean, it could be your dog tags, right? Sometimes that's the thing they want to inspect to see if you got your dog tags on you. Maybe it's your ID card. Usually most soldiers are pretty good about, keeping their ID card on, but hey, it happens sometimes. Now, getting more extreme with that, then we're getting into things like a weapon, right? You're in a field environment, you're on a deployment, whatever the case is, and you're carrying your weapon with you all the time, and you forgot it. You forgot it back in the truck, you forgot it back in the tent, you forgot it back in wherever you guys were staying, whatever the case was, and someone notices, hey, where the hell's your weapon at? And you're like, oh crap, I left it back in the truck, and you gotta go grab it, you gotta probably do some push-ups, whatever. If it's something where you seriously lost and you're like, I don't know where it's at, then it's a much, much bigger kind of problem. Now, they're not gonna, let's say you lost a weapon, you don't know where it's at kind of a thing, it's gonna be a pretty big deal. They're not gonna have you probably pay for it, as far as okay, that rifle costs $1,000, $2,000, whatever the value is of that rifle. They're not gonna take that out of your paycheck and make you pay for it. You're probably getting in pretty big trouble where you could reduce some rank or lose some pay as a punishment type of thing, but they're not gonna be like, oh, well, just pay for the price of this weapon, we'll call it good. The reason why I mention that is I've seen scammers kind of bring this up to other people where they're saying that, oh, well, this person's stuck in this country because they lost a weapon and they can't leave until they pay for it, and so they need the money to be able to pay for the weapon. No, that's not a thing. Their soldiers probably gonna get in trouble for losing the weapon, especially if they didn't find it, kind of a thing, but it's not gonna be a thing where, hey, we're gonna hold you hostage until you pay for that weapon. So you can see how that one definitely escalates into different levels, from a simple thing as a pen or some dog tags, or really escalate to something really more extreme like losing a weapon. Before I move into the last 2 things, if you didn't know, I got notebooks. I got a couple of different style notebooks, so especially if you're someone out there who's currently in the Army or about to be in the Army, get some notebooks. You gotta have something to write with, you gotta have that pen and paper like I mentioned in the second thing. You might as well have some pretty cool ones. I got a bunch of different designs, some simple chaos ones. I've also got some different ones, so it's got some funny covers to kind of mess with your NCOs or mess with other soldiers type of thing, so definitely check them out. I'll have a link down in the description box down below. You gotta have something to write on, so you might as well use a cool, awesome chaos notebook and support the channel. But let's get back into some more things that could possibly get you in trouble that are also pretty common in the United States Army. The 4th one is being out of regulation. That can be a pretty common thing, right? Maybe you didn't get a haircut, right? You slacked off a little bit and now your hair in the back of your head and the back of your neck or whatever is getting a little bit too long. Obviously this is for the male soldiers out there, and that could potentially get you in trouble. It could be a simple counseling statement, could be simply doing some push-ups, could just be a getting yelled at and told to go hit up the barbershop, at lunchtime or whatever the case is, after duty or whatever, but that's a pretty common one. Other things maybe related to the uniform, maybe you weren't paying attention and your name tape is missing, the US Army tape is missing, the flag is missing, whatever, right? Usually uniform issues can be a problem too that causes soldiers to get in trouble. Other things could be not shaving type of thing, that's being out of regulation. So if you show up to first formation and they notice you haven't shaved, well, you're gonna get in trouble for that. If your mustache is too long kind of a thing, because there is a requirement as far as how long the mustache can be it basically comes to the corners of your mouth. So if it goes a little bit longer, you're trying to do a Fu Manchu or something, or some handlebar mustaches, you're not gonna be able to get away with that. You're gonna get in trouble for that. Now I've got one more, the fifth and last one, and of course there probably is more than just 5 things that are pretty common that get soldiers in trouble, and if any of my veterans, any of my people that are currently in the Army can think of something outside of these 5, then definitely drop that down in the comment section down below so other soldiers can be informed, or future soldiers can be informed as far as potential things that are pretty common that soldiers get in trouble for. But the last one, the 5th one that I want to talk about, is having a messy barracks room. This is more geared towards my single soldiers, the soldiers that are not married, living off post kind of a thing, because in the barracks, you're gonna probably have room inspections, sometimes often, sometimes not that often. They have health and welfare inspections. They have inspections that are just maybe a monthly or a weekly thing that your squad leaders wanna do. It really depends on the leadership as far as how frequent they are. But that is a pretty common one that soldiers get in trouble for. Now, maybe if you're a very clean person, then you probably don't have to worry about this type of thing. But if you're not probably OCD and you're trying to make sure your place is clean all the time, there are even little things that can still get you in trouble, right? You're thinking, okay, well, I'm not a dirty person. I'm gonna clean up my room. I'm gonna have everything nice and neat. But sometimes there's just little things that still get you in trouble that maybe you're not always on top of. Current day barracks usually have like a sink kind of a thing, and it could be as simple as having a few dirty dishes in the sink. Mainly, that's more for like if it's an actual room inspection type of thing where you were told that, hey, on Wednesday after hours or whatever, we're gonna have a room inspection, or maybe it's during hours, whatever, they're gonna have a room inspection. In those cases, they have to be like completely perfect. If it's a simple kind of like your squad leader came to check on you in the morning, maybe after PT, maybe before PT, maybe not that big of a deal if you have a couple of dishes in there. But if it's piled up pretty high, yeah, you might have a little bit of an issue. If you have like old food in the microwave or in the refrigerator even too, those are things that can get you in trouble too. Not having things tidy, right? Maybe you have a pile in the corner of dirty clothes, that can even get you in trouble too. You should be put inside of a bag, inside of a basket, something out of the way, out of sight, out of mind, and also making sure you don't leave it sitting there for too long and it starts stinking up the room. So having a messy room isn't always like, oh, I got like, the floors are dirty, I got trash all over the place. No, they can be simple things like a few pieces of clothing laying on the floor, some things that aren't very well organized. Maybe you left out a half-eaten chip bag sitting there on the table kind of a thing, and they want you to make sure to put that stuff away. So that can be a very common thing of just not keeping your barracks room pretty tidy. You know, like I said, earlier, it really depends on your leadership as far as how often they're gonna come through your barracks room. It may be pretty frequently, it may be very unfrequently, whatever the case is, but you always gotta make sure your room is pretty well tidy. Technically, they can go inspect like off-post or on-post housing people, but it's a big kind of like hassle. There's a lot of things that can stop them from doing it and everything. So usually they don't, right? I think there's like a lot of things like where if the spouse doesn't agree to it, then they can't come inspect it. I don't know. There's a lot of kind of crazy like legal stuff in there, but they always say that technically they can come inspect the on-post housing individuals, the off-post housing individuals, but I don't think they ever do. So what do you think about these 5 things that are pretty common that soldiers get in trouble for? If you have some of these that you've gotten in trouble for, especially for those of you out there that are currently in the Army, maybe some veterans out there, I wanna hear some stories if you got them down in the comment section down below, if these are things that you have gotten in trouble for, or if there's something outside of these 5 that you have gotten in trouble for that's also pretty common with soldiers. For me, I've rarely had it where I was late. I was usually pretty good with being on time. I was pretty, paranoid about, getting in trouble kind of thing. So that was probably, maybe it happened. I'm not gonna say that I was perfect, but it was probably pretty rare if it did happen. Not doing what you're supposed to do, I don't think I ever had to worry about that one. I was usually, pretty good about it. Not saying I'm perfect, but I'd usually be pretty good about, doing what I was supposed to be doing. Not having something you're supposed to have, there's probably times where I forgot my dog tags, where I didn't have a pen or something like that. And, sure, maybe I had to do some push-ups to get a pen for my squad leader kind of thing. It's a pretty common one. Being out of regulation as far as like my hair, yeah, there especially got to a point where I was just sick of, having to deal with that all the time. So I got to a point where I just started buzzing my head every Sunday before Monday came around, so I would always be good. So I just said, screw it. And I was tired of going to the barbershop and tired of all this stuff. So I just started buzzing my head every Sunday. And then having a messy barracks room, yeah, that definitely did happen. I wouldn't say that I was a super clean person, but also not a super dirty person. It was just like little things here and there that always screw it up, right? I didn't make my bed. I had some clothes laying out, kind of a thing. Maybe just some, something else that was, something that would gig you for that kind of a thing. So definitely I am a victim of, being in trouble for some of these things. Nothing too extreme. I never got an Article 15 when I was in the Army, but yeah, sure. There was probably some of these things that I didn't do or I did or whatever, and it got me in trouble for it. Now, if you want to learn more about the United States Army, then make sure you're subscribed, but I also got a couple of videos that popped up on screen that if you haven't seen them, check them out. Otherwise, go visit my channel and see what else I got to offer. Thanks for hanging out. I'm Christopher Chaos, and I'll see you next time. See ya.